During the 1910s, nobody would believe you if you told them there would be a type of bomb made which only a couple of could wipe out the human race entirely. With the existence of nuclear bombs, we now believe the fact that how quickly threats to humanity can change. Like COVID-19, for example. Is it biological warfare or a biology lab mishap? Comment down below and let us know. The Global Challenges Foundation, which works to reduce global problems that threaten humanity, compiles an annual report on global catastrophic risks. The group released a 2018 edition. In 2018, of course, and the list is harrowing. Chemical warfare, supervolcanic eruptions, asteroid collisions, and the creeping effects of climate change threaten to cause everything from civilizational collapse to human extinction. A lot of these threats sound like science fiction, but so did they a couple of hundred of years ago. Alan Defoe and Andrew Sandberg of the Future of Humanity Institute wrote, "Our brains are good at thinking of catastrophic risk because they either completely neglect or massively overweigh things that are low probability." So the report, with each section written by leading experts, combines historical events with scientific data to determine the biggest threats. So let's not waste any more minutes to our delicate lives and jump right into the list. None of the following mentioned are in a specific order. The gravity of each cause is up to your imagination. Cause 1. Nuclear war. A nuclear detonation from one of today's most powerful weapons would cause a fatality rate of 80 to 95% in the blast zone, stretching out to a radius of 4 kilometers or 2.4 miles, although severe damage could reach 6 times as far. But it's not just the immediate deaths that we need to worry about, it's the nuclear winter. This is when the clouds of dust and smoke released shroud the planet and block the sunlight, causing temperatures to drop, possibly for years. If 4,000 nuclear weapons were detonated, a rare possibility in the event of an all-out nuclear war between the US and Russia, which hold the vast majority of the world's stockpile, an untold number of people would be killed, and temperatures could drop by 8 degrees Celsius over 4 to 5 years. Humans wouldn't be able to grow food, chaos and violence would ensue. Hundreds of nuclear weapons are ready to be released within minutes, a troubling fact considering that the biggest threat of nuclear war may be an accident or miscommunication. A few times since the 1960s, Russian officers and, in 1995, the president narrowly decided not to launch a nuclear weapon in response to what they'd later find out were false alarms. 2. Biological and chemical warfare. Unlike nuclear weapons, which require complex engineering, biological and chemical warfare can be developed at a relatively low cost with relatively attainable materials. In the past few years, the Syrian government has used chemical weapons in the civil war that has ravaged the country. These chemical attacks using sarin and chlorine have appalled the international community and underscored the damage chemical weapons can do. Weaponized toxic chemicals could do tremendous harm to a localized target, say if the toxins were released into the air or into the water supply. Biological weapons represent a greater catastrophic threat. Advances in synthetic biology have made very real the possibility of malicious actors creating harmful pathogens for weaponization, or innocent research accidentally releasing a lethal infection bug out into the world. In the event of a fast-moving pandemic, the world would be pretty vulnerable. Number 3, climate change. A United Nations panel of scientists released a report in 2018 saying that we have only 12 years to keep global warming to moderate levels, which translates into 9 years from now. Estimates of the effects of climate change vary depending on how much the Earth warms, usually benchmarked to an increase of 1 to 3 degrees Celsius. None of the scenarios look good. At best, we are looking at more frequent and severe tropical cyclones. Predictions include the loss of majority of global architectural land and freshwater sources, with major coastal cities like New York and Mumbai ending up underwater. At worst, human civilization would come to an ill-fated end. Even if current global commitments to reduce carbon emissions are kept, there is a 1 in 3 chance the Earth's temperature increased by 3 degrees Celsius, which would cause most of Florida and Bangladesh to drown. Catastrophic climate change is also not something we're dedicating nearly enough attention to. Dr. Lena Srivastava, the Director of General at the Energy and Resources Institute, points out that we've put enough time and resources into airplane safety that only 27 planes crash a year. But if dying in a flight accident was likely as 3% global temperature increase, then the number of people dying in airplanes every year would be 15 million. That takes a few seconds to understand. Number 4, ecological collapse. Ecosystems are the delicate community of living organisms, like humans and animals, interacting with their non-living environment, like air and water. Ecosystems can recover from a certain amount of impact from humans, like temperature increases and habitat loss. But there's a breaking point at which they can't, and according to the report, we might be reaching the tipping point. Lake Chad in West Africa is an example of ecological collapse. 60 years of drought, overuse of water, and impacts of climate change have reduced the lake by 95%. Its massive reduction has adversely affected the livelihoods of more than 40 million people in Chad, Niger, and Cameroon that depend on it. Number 5, pandemics. Twice in modern history, plagues have swept across the world, killing an estimated 15% of the population in a few decades. They occurred way back in the 5th and 14th centuries, respectively, but there is a serious risk that a new infectious disease could cause another outbreak, especially with today's urban and mobile global population. And yes, we are talking about something like COVID. 5 million people wiped out in a year. Luckily, deadly disease and capacity to spread globally are rare, but they do happen. A century ago, the Spanish flu killed more than 50 million people. Outbreaks of SARS and Ebola in recent years also ring alarm bells. Antibiotics, our greatest defense against disease, are becoming less effective as some strains of bacteria become resistant to them. Antibiotic-resistant bacteria are responsible for an estimated 700,000 annual deaths. If we don't develop new advances against antibiotic resistance, that number is estimated to reach 10 million by 2050. Number 6, asteroid impact. Asteroids are rocks that revolve around the sun that occasionally collide with the Earth. An asteroid is large enough to cause a global catastrophe. An asteroid hits the Earth every 120,000 years, scientists estimate. It's likely what killed the dinosaurs. And if an asteroid even 1/10 the size of that one that caused their extinction hit the Earth today, the results would be devastating. Scientists estimate it could release enough particles to block the sun for months and cause a famine, killing hundreds of millions. NASA announced in 2011 that it mapped more than 90% of objects in space larger than 1 kilometer in diameter, and that none of them are likely to hit the Earth. But there's still a lot we don't know about smaller objects that, while unlikely to cause global catastrophe, could have a big enough local impact to disrupt social and economic systems. Number 7, supervolcanic eruption. A supervolcanic eruption 74,000 years ago ejected so much debris into the atmosphere that scientists believe it caused the Earth to cool by several degrees Celsius. Some experts believe this caused the great mass plant and animal extinction. Number 8, artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, AI, is progressing rapidly. A surveyed scientist estimate, on average, that there is a 50% chance of AI being able to perform most tasks as well as or better than humans by 2050, with at least a 5% chance of surpassing human intelligence a couple of years after that. There's a common misconception that the risk of AI is that it will become malevolent. A bigger concern is that it will become too good at its job. As reports say, if you ask an obedient, intelligent car to take you to the airport as fast as possible, it might get you there, chased by helicopters and covered in vomit, doing not what you wanted, but literally what you asked for. The implications become much more frightening when you consider AI weapons at the hands of the wrong person or an AI arms race leading to an AI war. Number 10, unknown risks. It wasn't that long ago that climate change and nuclear warfare were largely unheard of. Today, there are risks we've already seen the devastating effects of, and that we worry could get much worse. Because of this, there's a possibility that we haven't even conceived of what is most likely to kill us. That was a wrap for the top 10 list of the biggest threats to humanity. Let us know what you think of this and how you would come up with a solution. Until next time, the Dash.